Okay, so let's talk a little bit about using QR codes. Now, obviously, you've seen the funny picture on the previous screen. To most of us, it's gobbledygook. Well, what's it mean? What's it do? Most of us will ignore it as some sort of peculiar printing error and just wonder what it is. So you do require a bit of education here for your customers, the people that the advertising is intended for. So what you need to do is you need to create a QR code and then put it on your advertising material. I'll show you how to create QR codes in a little while, but it's very, very easy. It really is. Then you need to put it onto your advertising material, so you've got to print it on your Yellow Pages advert, or you've got to print it on your business cards, or your till receipts, or your invoices, or your newspaper adverts, or whatever it might be. So you get it out there on your advertising material. Your user takes a smartphone. I've got mine in my hand. They take a picture with it. They scan it into the QR code reader on their smartphone, and then they either get a V card on their phone, or it will take them to a website, or whatever it is you want them to do. Now, typically with a QR code, you're going to use it to either give them your contact details so they can call you up, or you'll take them to a website. You might want to, if you're a restaurant, you might take them to a website with the daily specials or with a discount coupon on, or if you're another type of company, a drain cleaner, you may well take them to a website where you demonstrate your expertise. There's a video there or something like that. So there's plenty of opportunities here and different things that you could do. But bear in mind that wherever you take them, it is going to be viewed more than likely on a mobile device. That means it's got a small screen, it's got relatively slow bandwidth, so don't go crazy, because if you're trying to push a 110 meg file down to their mobile phone, they're not going to like you. It's going to take forever, to be perfectly blunt. So remember that it's aimed at mobile users. Now, what happens then once they've taken the picture is the QR code reader on their computer or on their smartphone will decode the picture. Now, this depends upon the smartphone and the software that they're using, but it could take anything up to sort of 30 seconds. It's typically between 5 and 30 seconds for it to work. So it is going to take a little while for it to go through. So bear that in mind. Don't scan a picture and expect something to happen immediately. It's going to take a few seconds. And then once they get onto your website, you could get them to fill in a form, view your marketing materials, sign up for a newsletter, sign up to get discounts, whatever it might be. There's loads of things you could get them to do. But QR codes is actually a very effective way of advertising. Now, obviously, it's no good just putting that on your advertising without telling people what they are. So, you need short instructions next to it telling people what to do. So if I've got one in an in-print advert, I may have underneath in small writing, scan this into your smartphone now for a 20% discount off your next visit, or something like that. And you can get people through. So it's very, very effective, and people are becoming more aware of QR codes. And the real benefit to your potential customers, the companies you're going to sell this to, is it allows for an instant response from potential customers. If I'm flicking through a magazine and I see an advert with a QR code on it and I'm interested, I can get my phone, which I guarantee, like most people, is going to be right next to me, take a picture, off I go. I'm on their website, I'm looking, and potentially I could become a customer then and there, rather than the old-fashioned days of people looking through a magazine thinking, oh, that looks interesting, I must come back to that. And you know what happens then. They don't, plain and simple. So basically what it's going to do is a QR code is going to increase response rate. Now, if you go and have a scout around on the internet, you can find some case studies that will tell you exactly how well this has worked for companies. So you can use some of that and quote some of those case studies in your marketing material and say to people that for XYZ restaurant, QR codes has been responsible for an increase of in 40% of business, something like that. So there's plenty of opportunities there for you to use material like that when you're targeting specific companies. But you've got to make sure there's instructions there, because like I said, not everyone's familiar with them, and if someone sees it and they don't know what to do, then they're just going to look perplexed. But if you've got these sort of instructions written next to it, just even if they're very basic, like scan this into the QR code reader on your smartphone, people will have a go. In fact, a lot of times, people who don't know what it is will have a go because they're curious. I mean, I've seen QR codes on the back of packets and in advertising, and to be honest, a lot of the time, until I became aware of what they were, I would look at them and think, I have no idea, what is it? What's it do? Is it some new form of barcode? Yeah, I was right, but I didn't realise how it could be used. So these companies were missing out on potential clients because they hadn't included simple instructions on what to do with the QR codes. It's very important. As I said, not everyone's familiar with them. A lot of people still remain completely and utterly ignorant of QR codes, which is fair enough. They've not had a lot of media coverage. They've not been widely advertised. People use them, but they don't tell people what they are. So if you can help educate people, they can really be at the cutting edge of technology with these. QR codes are really, really set to explode and take off. Something like 50 to 60% of people now have a smartphone. There's a massive amount of them out there. So potentially it's a great way of getting in touch with your target market. It's a fantastic way of giving them offers, getting them to give you reviews, getting them onto a mailing list, getting them interested in your business, etc., etc. So really, really think about this and think about how you can use it. It's a good place to really use your imagination. To be really honest with you, a lot of companies, when they see this and they realise the potential, they're going to bite your arm off literally to get you to give them QR codes. Think about local restaurants, for example. If you can give them QR codes that will give them, give people a little bit of a discount, but get them through the door, what would they rather do? Have nobody through the door paying full price, or have 50 people through the door with 20% off? What would they like to do? So I think the latter would be preferable. And as I said, with the tough economic climate at the moment, I'm not being funny here, but a lot of companies are going under and struggling, and that's because they can't get the people through the door. QR codes used properly is another very, very good way for you to get clients for your clients. So it's really, really going to be very effective and very helpful. So we've talked about QR codes now for a little bit. Let's go on to the next video and talk about some of the places where you can use QR codes and what you can do with them in those places, just to really, really help solidify it in your mind on what you can do with this and how it can really, really be effective for your clients.